So Vita Vea is back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Probably. We don't know for sure if he's going to actually play or how much he's going to play, but he has been deactivated from the injured reserve, meaning he can play, so you would assume that he's going to get some snaps if they did that, but there is still that chance that maybe he won't. But I wanted to make a video talking about what he means for this Bucs offense and how big of a deal will it be against Green Bay, because I think this is actually a huge deal. In my opinion, he is the most valuable player on that Bucs defense. I really do think so. So let's start off and show a little bit of what he can do. So we're going to start off with this play. He's going up one-on-one against the center. And that's what Tampa Bay does, especially with Vea, is Vea's pretty much maybe, him and Kenny Clark really are kind of the only pure nose tackles. But really, I feel like Vea is the guy who, he's just a nose tackle. That's what he does, and he's tremendous at it. He will get some snaps here and there into 3 tech, but for the most part, he's a 0 tech or a 1 tech. That's what he plays. The reason why it can be so effective having a guy like Vea lined up with against a center like this is just think about it logically. If you're a center, you have to snap the ball, and then you have to get your hands up, and you don't really have the time to do that if there's 320-pound lineman right in front of you who can also move and has great feet and great hands. So Vea can basically get the hand placement he wants immediately, and once he gets good hand placement, I don't care who you are, it's difficult to stop. Watch how Vea does just immediately push off Lloyd Cushenberry, that's the center, forces Drew Lock to the outside. Lock does a good job of improvising and still finding a way to scramble and pick up some yards. So you would have liked to see Tampa Bay maybe not give up containment on that one because it probably would have been a sack. But at the same time, that just shows what Vea can do. Although, again, I'll get more into the matchup in a second. I totally realize Packers fans are going to say, okay, you know who we have at center, right? Yes, I do. I'll get to it in a second. I think this plays another interesting one where I've heard some people say, well, you can always just double Vita Vea, but it's actually really difficult to do that with a guy who plays the 0 tech because he's lined up right against the center, and who's going to double him? Like, take a look at this one. So Vea is lined up with the center, so the center is going to block Vea. We know that much. Now let's look over to the left guard. You would think that the left guard is just simply going to block Sue. That's the guy who's lined up in front of him, so it would make sense to do that. And then the tackle could block Levante David, who's the linebacker, who is actually going to drop back into coverage, as you see, and Sue is just going to sort of shift around. So it's still going to be a 4-man rush, but Tampa Bay does this a lot, where they don't make it clear which 4 guys are rushing, and that's what the Todd Bowles scheme does so well, is it feels like the whole scheme, in fact, is designed to get Vita Vea as many one-on-one matchups with a center as possible. Not because he'll get a bunch of sacks that way, but you can just disrupt plays that way and get pressure. And, this season, really, with the exception of the game against Tampa Bay, Green Bay hasn't had consistent pressure all season long. So that could be a huge plus if Tampa Bay can get it here. But watch, so Vea in the one-on-one matchup immediately again wins the matchup against the center. But now you do see that the left guard kind of notices what's going on, trying to create some contact, but it's just not enough at this point. Vea has that unbelievable combination of his first step and power, where he's so big, but he can move so quickly, especially on that first step. That 1 or 2 steps into these plays, that's when it's won for Vea, and he can win them more often than he loses them. This time, he is going to power through. He does get a sack. They don't always result in sacks, but every now and then they do. Usually it results in a quarterback having to scramble outside, or move around, and that can allow edge rushers to get more sacks. There's a reason why Shaq Barrett had 19.5 sacks last year, and then this year, when Vea has been hurt for most of it, his numbers, he's still been fine, but his numbers have definitely gone down. Now, Green Bay fans are going to counter, and they're going to say, well, we just shut down Aaron Donald. And you did, without a doubt, absolutely. This play was a great example of that. It's going to be a rushing play, but there's going to be a double team on Donald, and then their center, Lindsey, he's going to have to go off to find someone else to block. So it's not a full-on double team, but that's sort of how it works. Corey Lindsey blocks Donald for a second, and then goes to find somebody else. But it's going to work out incredibly well. Watch Donald, and he's going to end up going down right there. Jones doesn't even run it there anyways. But again, are they going to be able to do that with Vea? I think that it's interesting, right? Because Vea is just a completely different animal. I'm not saying he's better. They're just 2 completely different guys, Donald and Vea. Donald is very much that 3-tech kind of guy, whereas for Vita Vea, he's going to line up with the center instead of against the guard. So it is a different situation, although, again, Corey Lindsey, as good of a center as you can really ask for. For Pro Football Focus, they have him as the highest graded center. He's a legit player, so he's not someone that you're nervous about if you're a Packers fan. But again, it's a big-time matchup. Who's going to win? We don't know. Vea didn't play the first time these two teams played each other, so it should be interesting. It also should be mentioned, we don't know how healthy Aaron Donald was in that game, but yeah, still a tremendous play. I don't think they'll be able to knock over big Vita Vea like that. If they do, they'll be the first team to do it. But yeah, it's still impressive nonetheless, and it shows how talented this offensive line is. This next one is another thing that I think could be really interesting, and this is something that I could definitely see Green Bay doing, where this is one of the few times you have a Rams player who's lined up against Corey Lindsey, and that's also something worth noting is, honestly, a lot of centers just aren't used to blocking guys who are lined up in front of them, whether that's the 1 or the 0 tech, because that's not what a ton of teams do. There aren't a ton of teams who do this. There's a good amount, but it's not like every team does this, and so you don't get as used to it as you might with some other stuff. And what Green Bay is doing here is it is a passing play, but they're just going to have Aaron Jones run over, and he'll block in that area. So he's kind of that second guy, which makes a double team much easier. It has to be a halfback, but that's okay. You can live with that. Watch, right when this play starts, there should be immediate pressure. If there's no back here, this is a disaster. But since Aaron Jones is picking this up, now you're not really that concerned for Green Bay. If Aaron Jones wasn't there, you'd be very concerned if you were Green Bay, but he is there. As you see, he finishes off this play and allows Aaron Rodgers to, throw an incompletion, but still gave him more time. And I think that's what I could see Green Bay doing a lot when Vita Vea is out there, which is still an advantage for Tampa Bay of, hey, you're forcing Green Bay to spend more focus on one guy, which obviously helps. But at the end of the day, you can definitely live with that for Green Bay. I actually think the real way that we could see Vea impacting the game is in the running game. He's such a monster in the running game. That's really where he thrives. And I think this play could do a good job of just showing what I mean when I say this whole defense is built around him. In the rushing game, really when he's been out there in this season and last season, teams have not been able to run on him. And I don't mean they've struggled. I mean they've legitimately not been able to run on Tampa Bay. So on this play, there's supposed to be a double team on Vea, and then the right guard gets off the double team to block Devin White. Now, this entire run defense is good. It's not just Vea, but it's sort of all built around Vea has to get extra attention, and that just opens things up for, if it's a front 7, the other 6 guys. So Denver tries to get this double team going a little bit, but they're not able to move Vea hardly at all. He moves a little bit, but he's pretty much in perfect position of where he'd want, or he's clogged up that gap at that point. So for Denver, you can't run through it, which that would just be an immediate tackle. Not just because Vea's there, but it was hard to get off this double team because, you really had to try and work on getting Vea over, which now means that Devin White is completely open and completely free to make a tackle on that side of the field. And on the left side of the screen, you see Jason Pierre-Paul, who's the number 90. He's doing a great job of winning his own one-on-one matchup since he gets a one-on-one matchup here and sort of closing this gap. And now there's just nothing you can do if you're Denver. This is going to be an immediate tackle. And I think that just goes to show. When you pay extra attention to Vea, Tampa Bay is fine with that. They're totally okay with you doubling him every game, which I still think is probably the smart strategy. And you just hope that for Green Bay, you have so much talent on this offensive line that the rest of the guys can win their one-on-one matchup. But it's definitely different. And I do think that this is a huge advantage for Tampa Bay. It's going to be tougher to run on them, and they might be able to get some pressure, which is really difficult to do against Green Bay. Do I think this is going to be like make or break this game? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that one player can't really completely impact the game like that. But this is a huge thing coming back for Tampa Bay. I guess the one flip side is just how healthy will he be? We don't know. He's been hurt for months. He might not be at game shape just yet. I've heard that he has been doing some extensive workouts, but there's a difference between working out and playing football. There just is. So I think he could play limited snaps. We'll probably see about 40 snaps of him. But I still think that that's a huge advantage than 0 snaps of him. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be making more videos previewing this game. I'm going to make, typically what I've been doing is making one about each offense going up against each defense. So 2 videos total, but I just wanted to make this little one since there's big news today that Vita is back, so I figured I'd make a video and talk about how important it is, and then I'll kind of get, more into detail about how that will affect the overall game when I make my video about the Bucs defense against the Packers offense. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.